Okay, everybody, I'm going to move my fish into my garage. This is a 150-gallon pond that I have outside, and here's the spot I want to put it in my garage. Garage is insulated, so it'll just provide a little more protection. Um, First thing I did was start to remove the water hyacinth. This is a couple days before I actually did the move, but I wanted to get a head start. When I first got these plants, I just had like 4 medium-sized plants, and you can see how many it turned into. They're starting to die off because it's getting so cold. I'm in New Jersey, so it's probably about, it's been in the 60s or so, but it seems like it's going to go down below freezing in the next couple of nights. So I actually took a temperature here, and I think the water was about 56 degrees. So it's, it gets down in the 40s lately. At night, it's been getting down into the 40s. And like I said, it's in a couple of days, it's going to go down, I think, to 30. So I wanted to make sure this thing doesn't freeze and crack my pond here. I've heard people say they crack sometimes. And the water, I believe, was about 56 degrees. So it's kind of hard to see on the screen. But anyway, so I wanted to get started. First thing, I was going to try to use the siphon that I have for my aquarium, and it works, but for what I was trying to do, it was going a little bit too slow, and I just kind of, for the time being, I'd abandoned that idea and just went to the old-fashioned way, just buckets, and dunking them in and getting a bucket full of water. I wanted to save as much water as I could, so I was just taking the buckets into the garage. I had a container, which you'll see in a second here. That's a 35-gallon brute trash can that I use for mixing salt water for my tank. So it's clean, it's food safe. So I filled, again, this is 35 gallons, so I filled this bucket up just to try to keep as much of the pond water as I could. After making a few trips, I had that whole trash can filled up with water. And here I'm starting to fill the 3 buckets up again. I'm going to use these buckets to transport the fish and just, again, try to keep as much water as I can from the pond, so it's not totally all new water. The pond is it's a 150-gallon tank, and it's pretty close to the top, so I estimate it's probably about 120 gallons maybe. So I'm just filling these 3 buckets up. And then I'll start catching some fish here to put in the buckets. This is the parrot feather plant that I have. That grew pretty big too. That was pretty small when I got it. And I actually cut it back a couple times and replanted it. There's a bucket of just additional gravel for additional biological filtration. I can also add a plant into that if I want. That's the milk crate that the plant was sitting on. and I'm starting again to do the siphon here. Um, since I have all my buckets full now, I can't just continue to keep siphoning because I have to have my buckets full to catch the fish, but I still need to drain some of the water. So I'm starting to catch some fish here. Start putting them in the buckets. I use the 3 buckets, so they're not all in one bucket, just to give them a little more space and oxygen. Starting to disconnect the filter, taking that out. Removing my little decoration there that the family wanted to put in there. Remove the filter shelf. And the pump. The pump is actually sitting on a shelf that's probably about 5 inches off the bottom. The total water depth is probably about 20 inches, so maybe about a quarter of the water would remain. If something ever happened to the pump, it wouldn't pump completely dry. That's just some of the pieces of rock that I have that the shelf is sitting on. Just checking for any snails or anything to see if they're attached to it. Catching, now everything's out, I'm catching the last few fish. Nowhere for them to hide now. Makes it a little bit easier. Now that I captured all the fish, I just opened up the bottom plug and just let all the other water drain out. I'm going around and catching any or picking up any snails that we have in there. There's some snails that survived. There's a lot of debris, so I'm cleaning it out a little bit and not scrubbing or anything, just rinsing off the leaves and pine needles. And here it is going into its spot. Since I put it in that spot over there on the side next to the wall, I just wanted to make sure I can still reach my electrical panel if I ever need to turn something off. Then also I wanted to check to make sure it wasn't blocking the sensor for the garage door, and just make sure the garage door clears. Make sure everything is good. I want to provide as much room as possible in the garage. Getting ready to start putting some of the water that I retained from the pond into the back into the pond, putting a little bit of polyester batting over top of the hose that I'm going to use to siphon. I just try to keep all the debris out. There was a lot of pine needles and some leaves and bits of the plants that were left, so I was just trying to siphon out all that, or filter out all that material. Here I'm getting the siphon started. Wasn't sure if it was going to start, but I actually got it working there. You can see the water's coming out. Once I got it siphon started, I clamped both ends just so the siphon can work and do its thing and I wouldn't have to tend to the hose. Still going. Here's all my fish. I have some fantails, 3 fantails, probably about 12 comets, 2 rosy reds, and I think 3 sarasa. It's a lot of fish for this pond, but they're still small, so once they start getting bigger, I'm going to have to rehome them. Here I am releasing them into the pond. I added about 50 gallons or 40 gallons of new water and conditioned it, and then added the 50 gallons of the pond water, and there you see my fish, and then here is the pond completed. Put the decorations and the filter back in, and I have everything running. So that's how I moved my pond inside. This garage, I've never seen it get below 50 degrees since it's insulated. It's not heated, but the heating unit is there in the closet, and I keep the closet door open so that heat just naturally warms the garage. So like I said, it stays above 50 degrees. So that's how I did it.